All right, welcome everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to have Mr. Carmen Trutanich here. He served as a city attorney of Los Angeles from 2009 to 2013. He is a native of LA, born in Los Angeles, went to school at USC, Southwestern University, worked in the tuna industry, worked in the LA County as a prosecutor, and then also had his own firm, and then finally got to the position of city attorney, which he served for 4 years. Now he'll talk to us about now what he's been doing since then. But it's an honor and privilege to have you here, Mr. Trutanich. Thanks for joining.
The privilege and the honor is mine.
All right.
Thanks,
so we'll get right into
for asking.
Sure. We'll get right into it. So you were born in Los Angeles. What area? What part?
I was born in a place that the locals call Pedro. It's called San Pedro, and I was born on 9th Street, across the street from Mary Star of the Sea Church. And then when the church moved up to 8th Street, my parents bought a house across the street from the church, and because my mom was a very staunch Catholic, and we moved there, and we lived there all my life.
Cool. And so did you go to the public schools locally there in San Pedro as well?
I did. I went to Cabrillo Street, and then because Mary Star of the Sea was right across the street, and my mom was a big volunteer, I went to Mary Star of the Sea Elementary School there to the 8th grade, and then off to Furman La Suenne High School.
Okay. And then how was growing up in San Pedro and that environment?
Well, I mean, my dad worked in a cannery. Yeah, and somewhere in this conversation, you're probably going to hear me say that I'm the luckiest SOB you ever met in your life. I'm one of 7 kids. I am the 4th in the birth order, right in the middle. And so happens, and serendipitously, my wife is one of 7 kids, and she is the 4th in the birth order, so which is kind of cool. So we have similar experiences in terms of dealing with siblings and things. But you can imagine raising 7 children on a cannery worker's salary. And my mom didn't work, and my grandmother and my grandfather lived with us, which was a help because my grandfather was a fisherman. And when I was younger, old enough to go work on the boat with him, I would go down, and my first job was basically to go and take fish out of the hole when they got in, and take it down to the market and sell it to make $5 or $6 to have some spending money. And then I got to go out on the boat with him and work, which one of the reasons I'm not a real big boater. I fell overboard one night, and that cured me.
And how old were you when you did that?
I was probably, God, that's a long time ago. 14 and a half, 15, 16, somewhere in there. Okay. Yeah. Then I got a part-time job at McDonald's, as a counter host. And when I finally got my authorization from my dad, I got to work at Starkist in the plant. And my dad had been working there since he was like 17 years old. So he was a production foreman. So he made sure I got the worst jobs in the cannery so that I wouldn't end up there.
That's cool. So you got working right away, in your high school days, and
even before that, I worked in the grocery store. I worked on 8th Street where I grew up. There was a grocery store on 9th Street. And one of the things, there's a guy who's very famous in LA who was my predecessor at the grocery store, a guy named Dave Gascon. He was the assistant chief under Bratton. Dave and I worked in the same grocery store when I was very young. I think I started when I was 9, working part-time, just putting bottles away because they had a trade-in value back then. So you put them away, and it was just growing up in Pedro. I wanted to buy a skateboard. My mom and dad couldn't afford it, so I had to work to get one.
Good for you. That's it. So I mean, did you do other activities besides your job? I mean, like in high school and stuff, or in
Oh
sports?
yeah, I played all, every sport there was to play. I ran. When I got older, I really ran. I've done probably about 33 or 34 26-mile marathons,
Hmm.
a few triathlons.
Wow.
Um, that's why I have two fake knees and two fake hips these days.
Ah.
I didn't expect to live this long, but yeah, I was an athlete in high school, and I had some success. Um, not nearly as much as my cousins did, but I was okay.
Okay. And what was your favorite sport? I mean, sports that you
Football.
played. Football. Okay. What
Yeah.
position?
I was a tight end and an outside linebacker.
Okay.
And sometimes when the coach was mad at me, I'd play nose guard.
Oh, wow.
You know?
All right, good for you. Good for you. So then you finished high school. How soon did you start go to college right away after high school, or did you?
I went into the Coast Guard.
Okay.
Left high school early. Went into the Coast Guard Reserve. Got out of that. Then enrolled into USC. And by the time I got out, they had given all the classes basically away, and I ended up in the business school because that was the only place I could get a class. And I was taking 10th and 11th grade classes.
Hmm.
Or I'm sorry, second and third year classes, and it kind of dictated my my future as a business going into business.
I see.
At the time, my girlfriend's dad was a CPA, and he was helping me get through some of the upper division courses as a freshman. It was fun. It was,
Okay.
I think I had an interesting college career.
Okay. But you the Coast Guard you didn't finish high school on time. You went to the Coast Guard.
No,
You said.
you got to remember back then was Vietnam was going on, and me and a buddy of mine, we got on the waiting list when we were 16, got called in, and we got permission to take our tests early and go.
Ah. Okay. Okay. So then you went for how long? Coast Guard, sir, your service.
Well, it was 6 month service, but I got out after like 3 or 4 months, 3 months.
Oh, that's a pretty short time. And
Yeah.
do you think that I'm just curious, do you think that helped you to get into USC, or you were already like a stellar
No,
student in high school?
I was already accepted.
Oh, you're okay.
I was already accepted.
Oh, wow. And you didn't just go straight to you opted not to, huh?
I had a great GPA in high school. I was close to a 4. Oh, I was
Wow.
like a 3.8 or so.
Okay, okay. And so you went to USC and you in 4 years you graduated, or right?
Yeah, I graduated, got my master's,
Okay.
and afterwards, and it was I enjoyed college. I mean, maybe I enjoyed it too much, but I was in a fraternity and um, had a lot of fun. I mean,
Okay.
I did some stupid stuff like every other college kid does. Probably more stupid than most, but
Uh-huh.
it was fun, and I had a good time. I don't regret anything. I went to work right after college at Starkist because all this time while I was going to SC, I was working at night at the cannery. I never stopped working. I worked at the cannery for 15 years. I had to help
Wow.
pay for my education
Okay.
because my dad had 7 kids, and he couldn't afford to do that with his cannery worker salary. So I mean, I worked at night from 4 to 12 at the cannery, and
Wow.
um, honestly, uh, I had a lot of guys in the football team working for me. I had a lot of friends from college working because I was ended up being the lead man at the warehouse in Plant One when I was a junior or sophomore junior at SC, and so I got to hire extras, and so I'd hire guys from SC to come down and work, and they'd make some. I think the pay was like $3.28 or something. It was like nothing, but back then that was a lot of money.
No, but so you went to USC without having the scholarship? I mean, it's expensive. I mean, to make a decision to.
Well, it wasn't that expensive back. It was like $3,000 or $3,000 or $4,000, and I was making, as a lead man, I was making 411 an hour. And so I paid it off every semester. I'd pay it off, but
Wow.
yeah. So it wasn't that bad. It wasn't,
Okay.
it's not like like I have four children, and one went to SC, another one went to Georgetown, another one went to Santa Clara, another one went to San Marcos. Literally, they stick a gun in your back. I mean, it was a lot of money to pay for those colleges.
Yeah,
But
yeah, it sure is. It sure
yeah,
is.
I just didn't want my kids to have to be saddled with a debt, or
Yeah,
I wanted them to enjoy their life.
yeah. No, but USC is rather expensive right now, and
Yeah.
I just it would hard to imagine someone not getting a scholarship or not having the backing of their family and to take on that huge debt and actually be able to pay it, as they're going. That's kind of
Well, you got to
impressive.
remember, I worked 5 nights a week, and then on Saturdays I'd go in, and it was time and a half.
Hmm.
And so, and it wasn't. It really. It sounds rougher than it was, or than because I had friends that worked at. It was like going with your. We had a job to do. I had a. I shouldn't say this, but I had a. There was a day shift, okay, and I ran the night shift as the lead man.
Yeah.
And my deal was, once we beat the day shift, we get off at 12. Once we beat the day shift, let's get a couple of cases more than they did, and let's get the hell out of here.
Okay.
And that's what we did.
No, hustle the time you're there. And so, what exactly did you do? What was the
Well,
actual role?
well, I started off as a caser, where you just sit there and you put tuna in a case. I mean, cans of tuna that come down a
Okay.
conveyor, and and then I worked as a stacker, where you stack cases, tuna on a pallet, and that was just a terrible job. I worked unloading fishing boats. I worked in the fish room. I worked in the packing room,
Hmm.
where you punch cards of ladies that were cleaning fish. You drop a basket of fish on their front of them, and then you give them a punch so they can meet their standard.
Hmm.
I mean, like, my dad wanted to make sure that I didn't end up there, so he gave me all this. I used to come. I didn't have to buy Old Spice. I went out on dates smelling like a tuna.
That's cool. So then you after you graduated college, you still continued working in the same
Yeah.
capacity.
Well,
In the same.
after then, I was working in the office.
Okay.
My uncle got me a job. Because you got to remember, San Pedro, everybody's related to everybody. Back then anyway. And my uncle got me a job in the office, and I was working in procurement. And one of the things that we were doing in procurement was that we were negotiating fishing contracts with different places like New Guinea and Samoa and
Ah.
places like that. And so Ghana, I built a refrigeration plant in Ghana. I
Mhm.
was responsible for that as my job in procurement, and the the thing that really came home to me was I didn't know what I was doing, even though I took business law, and so I had to go to law school at night and learn contracts,
So
so I could do, and that's what I did. And
okay, so you went to business school at night, right? Or
no,
no,
I
I'm
went
sorry.
to
No, 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 no. Law school.
law school at night.
So
Yes.
how long were you already working after having gotten your MBA before you went to law school?
Oh, maybe 6 or 7 months.
Okay, right away. So pretty soon
Yeah,
after.
I mean, I
Okay.
knew that I was over my head. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that you're gonna get your behind kicked if you don't get smart. And
Okay.
so I wanted to make sure I was smart, so and know what the other side knew, because they had some smart guys who knew what they were doing on the other side. Um, and so and then I liked it, so I just continued
Mhm.
and passed the bar And then I went into private practice on my own in San Pedro on 9th Street.
Mhm.
I remember the day I passed the bar, I went down and got an office on 9th Street, right there on 9th and Grand. And my first client came in, and the first thought in my mind was, "You got to see a real lawyer," you know.
Hold on.
And
So back up, let's back up real quick. So you went to law school at night, right? But I mean, did you go part-time or you went full-time and finished right away?
well, I mean, I took. You have to go. You have to take at least 3 classes at night, and so it took me 4 years to get to do the 3 years of law school.
Okay.
But I did it, and
And then you passed the bar. How many times did it take you to pass the bar?
47 times.
Nah.
No, no. I actually I took the bar twice. I passed the professional responsibility portion of the bar. I missed the bar, believe it or not, by 2 points.
Oh.
It was the biggest disappointment in my life because I always thought I was, and I should have spent more time preparing and less time working, but I had a job.
Yeah.
And so the second time I just studied, and I studied day and night. When I wasn't working, I was sitting at a desk reading and studying. In the library, Thanksgiving Day, everybody was having turkey, and I was, at my desk. And I passed it the second time with flying colors, um, uh, and I decided I wanted to open my own office.
No, because that's different from what I saw online. So no, that's pretty impressive. You self-financed USC.
Yep.
You went to law school at night while you were working a regular job full time, and then you passed the bar, and then now you went into private practice. I thought you worked for the county first. That's what
No,
it says on Wikipedia. You went work for the county first.
no, I went into private practice, and I was
Right.
doing great. I mean, literally, everybody knew me and my my family from Pedro, um, and I was doing good. I was making good money, but I wasn't. It was just the same. I had the same feeling I had when I went to work in procurement at Starkus. I didn't feel I was at my best. I wanted to be the best that I could possibly be. That's been my. If I had to pick out one trait in my life, I would say that haunts me, and it drives my wife crazy, because I've got to be the best. I have to be,
Okay.
and so I decided I was going to apply to the district attorney's office to learn how to try a case, and
Okay.
and um, I was lucky because there was a guy who was the chief deputy. His name was Kurt Livesey. He just passed away a few months ago, and Kurt was from San Pedro. And, and I made it through the interview process, and then I had to go through Kurt Livesey. And he was the guy that you had to sell that you wanted to be a DA and get it. And I got hired by Kurt. And to this day, in fact, when I became city attorney, Kurt had retired from the DA's office after 35 years as chief deputy, working for 4 or 5 different DAs. I called him out of retirement, and I had a chief deputy, and I said, basically, I want you to teach him how to be a chief deputy. And I hired him to work with my chief deputy. And he just a great human being, just a wonderful guy. You'll never hear me say anything negative about Kurt Livesey. He was just a wonderful man. And he gave me a shot in the DA's office. I was downtown for a little bit. Then I went to Long Beach, and I was the DA. Believe this or not, you're gonna love this one. I was the DA in San Pedro. And not only that, on Fridays I used to go to Catalina, and I was the DA in Catalina. Yeah.
That's a nice.
That was and I did my 1 year in Long Beach as the DA, because that's where you're stationed in Long Beach, but you go over to San Pedro Court, and that's when they had a court in San Pedro. Then I went into juvenile. I did my stint in juvenile crime, and then from juvenile I heard that the hardest and the most serious unit in the DA's office was the hardcore gang division of the district attorney's office, and I applied to join the hardcore gang division of the district attorney's office.
Wow, wow. Let's back up real quick. So your private practice, how many years did you have a private practice? And what type of law did you practice?
Well, I was in private practice in San Pedro when I first graduated.
Yes.
And basically anything that walked through the door. I mean, literally, we had no money. My wife worked for United Airlines as a flight attendant. So she was making like $1,200 a month or something, and I could just remember when I got my first $300 retainer, I didn't know what to charge, and I called her up and I said we could buy diapers,
No, but I mean, a lot of attorneys nowadays have a specific focus, like family law,
back then, I didn't know enough to have a focus. I mean, I was lucky just to be practicing law in San Pedro, and I would do, I was on the 987 panel at the San Pedro court, which is the indigent panel doing indigent criminal defense. I did a lot of unlawful detainers. I did some family law. I did a little bit of, a lot of civil stuff, little contracts here and there, but it was nothing like, representing Walmart or Ford or GM. I mean, I was representing and plus my mom, God bless her, everybody, oh, just call my son, he'll take care of you. And I was the best free lawyer in San Pedro.
Okay.
There was, I swear, I don't think I ever charged anybody that lived in Pedro, because my mom would tell me, go down and see my son, and I would take care of these, write wills, and do all this stuff for all her friends. And but you know what? It helped me, but it also taught me that I needed to grow, and I could be, I could have a corner law office and struggle for 50 years and do fine. Or I could be a real lawyer, and I chose the fact that I wanted to play in the big leagues, and so I wanted to go to the DA's office, and what better place to learn how to try a case than in the DA's office.
And how was that? How was that? Like, what kind of things would you be working on at that time?
Well, I mean, when I first started, I was a grade one, and I would do felony prelims and misdemeanor trials. And I was the only DA assigned to San Pedro at the time. So I was basically working without supervision. And anything that came in, 1538.5 motions to suppress, any kind of motion that would be brought by a defense attorney, I would handle and prepare for. It was an interesting time, and I remember all the judges to this day who I appeared. Judge Binns was the first one, and then there was Judge Wymore in Division 86, and Judge Elovich in 87, and I got to appear in front of all of them, and I got to be comfortable in a courtroom, and that's one of the big things about lawyers that are frightened of trying cases. Once you get comfortable in your own skin in a courtroom, the rest is just a matter of your preparation and being able to present what you need to present. And once I got out of Pedro, I went to Compton and was in the hardcore. And when after my stint in juvie, I went to Compton and did my time as a hardcore DA.
Okay.
And when Phil Bozian lost the race to Ira Reiner, he started these new units called the Environmental Crimes Unit, and some of the more white collar crime issues. And the guy who was in charge of the environmental unit wanted some heavyweight prosecutors, and by that time I had done death penalty cases and things like that. He he wanted me to come into environmental crimes, and there had never been a trial in environmental crimes. And I went, wait a minute, I don't want to do this. There's, I'm a trial lawyer. I'm not, and so I made a deal that if I could take one death penalty case with me, I would go to environmental crimes. And to this day, I think I'm the only guy in the DA's office ever got a death penalty from environmental crimes.
Hmm.
But it wasn't an environmental crime case. It was a hardcore gang case that I brought with me.
Wow. And so you moved to the juvenile unit. Why did you do that, or how was that?
Well, you have to do a year in juvie.
You have to. Okay. And how was that?
It's a mandatory. Back then, it was a mandatory thing. You got to do your year in juvie.
Okay.
And
how was that experience?
I learned a lot. I got to meet a lot of new judges that I didn't know before, and everything happens very, very quickly. And the focus is not so much on let's lock this SOB up. The focus on how do we help this minor turn his life around so he doesn't end up in state prison down the road. Now, if the guy's over 15 or 16 years old, I think it was 13 at the time, and he murders somebody, there's a cutoff age that you can try them as an adult, and that becomes a decision of the upper echelon of the office. I've done a lot of fitness hearings on top of that. I learned a lot. I mean, it's hard to be a DA and not learn. And again, coming from such a colloquial environment of San Pedro, I mean, I can tell you, I probably can count on my hands how many times I went north of PCH in my life. I wasn't exposed to crime. I didn't know. Literally, it shocked me when I got to see just how violent some of the things that occur in this county were. It was amazing. And that experience really helped me a lot when I became city attorney, because the one thing that people lose sight of in criminality is they focus on the criminal, but you got people who are victims, and they need to be brought through this, because not only are they victims of the crime, but they're victims of the system, because they've got to testify and relive that whole experience. And it's a difficult thing for those folks to do. I mean, I've tried a whole lot of cases, probably over 200 jury trials,
And how long were you in this role?
I was a DA for 10 years.
Okay. It's a long time.
9 point something,
Mm-hmm.
But my kids were getting ready to go to college, and I didn't have any savings. I was making less than $50,000 a year, and we had bought a house. And so we were house poor, and I needed to make some money to, because I wasn't going to strap my kids with,
Mm-hmm.
$200,000 or $300,000 loans.
Yes. So then you did what?
I left the DA's office, and I can remember it to Gil Garcetti's credit, because he was a DA at the time. He had Dan Murphy sit with me and try to talk me out of leaving. And I'll never forget that, because I never thought I was important to anybody. I just thought I was a regular guy doing my job the best I could, and that meant a lot to me. But I had to go because it was my family. I had to take care of my kids, and I did. And I left, and I joined a big firm, and I was there for about a year, maybe a little bit less, and I didn't like it. I just didn't feel. I felt disconnected. So I opened while I was there at this big firm, I met a guy up in San Francisco who was working as general counsel for a shipyard that was being prosecuted, and we opened a firm, Jaffe, Trutanich, Katina, and Bloom, and I handled the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard case. Got all the individuals dismissed from the case, and then my client died, and I.
So you were defending.
I was defending. It was an environmental crime case. It was fun, to put the evidence together. I enjoyed it. I mean, I love trying cases. So it was fun. And it's sort of like being an actor where you stand up in front of a camera and you hear instead of a camera, it's 12 folks in a box that are listening to you, what you got to say.
Okay.
So I went into private practice, and I got to remember, environmental crimes was just beginning. There had never been a trial. Yeah, I tried the very first environmental case in the state of California, wrote the jury instructions for it, you know, uh, when I was in environmental crimes. And so all of a sudden, when we started this firm, environmental cases started coming out of the woodwork for me. And at some point, when Rex Katina, my partner, uh, when he left Jaffe, Trutanich, Katina, and Bloom, it changed the complexity of the law firm. It changed the mix, and so I left with him when he left, and I started my own practice down in San Pedro.
For how many
And
years? For how many years did you do this practice?
God, I would say probably 8, 10 years, and then more than that, more like 15. Because when I left the office, started JTS&B, then went off on my own, and I was in my own firm until I became city attorney.
Okay, good for you.
And that was a different thing for me, because I never thought I'd run for anything. In fact, it wasn't, the DA at the time had asked me to run for city attorney. It took me 6 weeks to decide, because I had a prosperous firm that was making good money. We had about 70 employees, and so I had to give all that up. And it was a decision that I had to make with my wife. My kids were somewhat grown. I think we only had 1 or 2 left in the house, and all the kids were saying, "Go do it, Dad. You'd be great. Go do it. Go." And I'm going, "Yeah, really? Who's going to write the checks?"
Yeah.
And so it took me 6 to 8 weeks, and I refused, because at the time that I decided to run, I was living where I'm living now in Long Beach, and I had moved from San Pedro to Long Beach, and I said, I'm not going to run living in another city.
Yes.
So I moved my son, who, when he graduated from law school, we bought him and put a down payment on a condo for him, and in the city of LA, and I moved into his condo and he moved into my house, and so we did that for a bit, and then I ultimately bought a house in Harbor City while I was running, and which I loved. I loved my house in Harbor City. I loved it. It reminded me of the old days being in San Pedro. And then, from there, I ran for city attorney, and I'm sure that most people thought that Carmen Trutanich was a woman, and when they finally met me, they went, "What an ugly, ugly girl!"
All right. So you won. You became a city attorney, right? We're running out of
Yes.
time here on my Zoom recording. But
I'm sorry.
as city attorney, what
Just tell me to shut up when you want me to stop.
No, but as city attorney, what would you say were the major areas of focus for you, or major highlights in your term?
Well, I like the fact that my budget was cut tremendously by the mayor when I took office, because I was not his candidate of choice, and it was cut under my payroll, so my payroll was greater than my budget, and that means I couldn't even buy Xerox paper. So we had to make money, and every single year I was there, and this is on the record, I gave back $500,000 at the end of the year to the city from my budget, because I wasn't going to let anybody beat me down. And so we made money. We brought 17,200 cases against companies that were doing things that weren't proper, and we get judgments against them, and use that money to help finance the office.
Hmm.
We, so I got rid of a lot of it would be not unusual for the city attorney to spend somewhere between 30 and $50 million on outside counsel. Okay. Well, I think I had 647 lawyers working for me. Now, why would you need outside counsel if you had 647 lawyers? I mean, yeah, you need them for conflicts, okay, for that, but not for just hand out a case because you want somebody to handle it. Maybe because you want to get a fundraiser back from that guy when you're down the road somewhere.
So you were efficient. You were efficient. You brought in some revenue for the city based on.
I hired my chief deputy was the head of public corruption for the United States Attorney's Office in the Central District. I wanted to make sure that my office was squeaky clean. And so he was my chief deputy. He had never served as a chief deputy before. And that's why I brought Kurt Lisey over to teach him how to do that job. But I knew one thing, if you got the head of public corruption, as your number two guy, nothing crooked's going to happen underneath you.
Yeah.
And that was good. I mean, there was a lot of things that we did that were novel.
Okay.
The reserve deputy city attorney program, when they cut my budget so much that I didn't hire one. And here's the good thing for you. 4 years as a DA, how many people did I hire?
How many?
None.
You just use
no permanent. I took guys from criminal. I would move them to civil to do civil cases because those guys tried cases. They tried these misdemeanor cases that are hard to prove. They were good lawyers. Not good. They were great lawyers. And I took them out of criminal, moved them into civil, and then I went to the law schools. And I told the kids in the law schools, I said, look, you come work for me for 6 months. I will swear you in as a deputy city attorney. You will work. You're not going to make any money, but I'm going to give you 6 months, and I guarantee you'll do 10 jury trials. I had over 200 kids working for me. And that was a novel thing because that didn't cost me anything to run my criminal courts. And all I had to do was put experienced supervisors in those courtrooms to keep those kids going.
Okay, time. We only have a minute and a half left. What'd you do about gangs?
So you have to, gangs is a whole concept.
Or public safety in general.
I never got to finish it. I never got to finish. I can't prosecute murders as a city attorney because all I can do is misdemeanors. But what I wanted to do, and what I still think they should do today, is they should have a life skills class in every school, everywhere, every school. I don't care what is. There has to be either prosecutors or city attorneys in that class to teach kids what happens when you commit a crime. And I guarantee you that if we start at the first grade and go all the way up to the 12th grade, we teach these kids that we'll take them down to county jail, let them see those guys walk the green line or the yellow line or the red line in county jail where they get locked into a cell. That is an eye opener. It's not scared straight. It's reality.
So you're saying what is supposed to happen, not what really happens. Or are you saying?
That's right. We have to educate our kids to be good citizens, and life skills is something that I don't think is being emphasized enough.
Okay.
I wanted to do that.
Okay. Hey,
did I talk too much?
This Zoom's going to end right now, but we're going to have to continue a part 2 because there are some other things that I wanted to get into and I want to ask you about. So we'll reschedule. Okay. So thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you watch part 2. I'll call you right now.
Luis.
All right.
It's been fun, pal.
All right.
Take it easy.